Good afternoon, it's John Heaton, and today I thought I'd have a go at kind of reimagining a volume 2 of the Rock and Roll Music album, this 1976 compilation which came out covering the Beatles' so-called rock and roll tracks. Came in for a bit of stick at the time from some people, other people loved it. A mixture of cover versions and originals. Anyway, the second volume, I thought it would be nice to cover the solo years and sort of give you some of the rock and roll or rock tracks, should we say, from the solo years. And I had a few moments deciding how to set the ground rules for this, because obviously there's a thin line between rock and roll and rock and pop. On the whole, I tried to avoid straight pop songs, and I tried to avoid duplication with the various greatest hits albums that are out there. So I didn't necessarily pick the hits. I made a conscious effort to maybe pick some album tracks which are kind of rockers and didn't quite get the attention they perhaps deserved. Another good rule for choosing the tracks for any album like this is, can you dance to it? If you put it on at a party, is it going to empty the dance floor, or are people going to get up and dance? And for the most part, with the tracks I've chosen, and certainly with this album, I think this is a good dance album. And the tracks I've chosen, I think there's a couple of times where maybe the dance floor might empty, but on the whole, I think these are good, fun, upbeat tracks, and some of them are a little bit incongruous outside of their normal setting, such as couple of Plastic Ono Band tracks, but I couldn't exclude them, and I've gone with the same concept as the original, 7 tracks per side, so it's 28 tracks in total, and I've chosen 8 from John, 8 from Paul, 8 from George, and 4 from Ringo. So that was about as democratic as I could come up with. So I will now get on to what I've chosen. I'll go through it in order, so starting with side 1. And I've opened with George's tour de force, Wah Wah from All Things Must Pass, which is a tremendous rock song and was performed very successfully in concert with all his fellow musicians there in New York. And on the All Things Must Pass album, you've got Jim Gordon drumming along with Ringo on this track, I believe, or is it Alan White? I can never quite remember. Jim Gordon, who sadly left us the other day, unfortunately. So Wah Wah, good opener for the album, and Eat at Home from the Ram album is next, and a lovely hidden gem from side 2. Absolutely always love this track, kind of Buddy Holly in style. Lovely guitar from Paul and Dave Spinoza, and just all in all a really catchy, fun track to play loud wherever you are, really. And then we've got Ringo's superb cover of the You're 16 song, written by Sherman and Sherman, and this is just so infectious. You know, maybe the lyrics come in for some stick these days, but it's a thoroughly successful cover. And it made it all the way to the top of the charts in the US at the time, which was no mean achievement. Tremendous song, great harmony vocals, backing vocals from Harry Nilsson, great mouth sax solo from Paul McCartney. And then we've got the first track from Plastic Ono Band, I Found Out, which is a tremendous rocker with Ringo on drums, Klaus Voormann on bass, and John on guitar, just those three. And whilst it may not quite fit in on a compilation album like this, I thought if I'm going to choose rockers from the solo years, I can't really leave this one out. So that's John's very nice confessional, I Found Out. And then we've got the title track of Material World, and I don't know if I have it with me. Yeah, I do. So pounding piano here from Gary Wright, or it could be Nicky Hopkins, Jim Keltner on drums, and nice sax playing throughout. And although it does slow down in the middle, so if you're putting it on at a party, it may not be the ideal track to play, but it's a great track. I love it, even though he's having problems pronouncing the word material a little bit, and some people say that detracts from the song, but on the whole a wonderful effort, and about the only rocker on that particular album. And then we've got next, I couldn't find the CD, but I've got the Live in the Cavern Club DVD, and I'm going to choose Paul's version of Brown Eyed Hampson Man, which is absolutely delightful, and there's a great video where he's got a whole lot of people dancing with him in time to the song, and it's just superb. Love it. Next we've got John Lennon's superb Plastic Ono Band single from '69, Cold Turkey. Play This One Loud. Eric Clapton on guitar, Ringo on drums, Klaus Voormann on bass, and John also on guitar, singing his heart out about heroin withdrawal. Very unnerving to listen to, but very powerful, and pretty much ahead of its time in terms of its sound and its message and everything. It's just a wonderful, groundbreaking song in my opinion. So that completes side one. Side two, we're going to open with John's Storming Rocker, New York City. He's backed here on this album by the Elephant's Memory, and they do a superb job. Wayne Tex Gabriel does a great guitar solo in the middle, and then the keyboard guy, Adam, does a very nice piano solo towards the end of the track. And they're just cooking it on this track. In fact, the whole album, they provide wonderful accompaniment. So that's a big highlight, and ironically that was the song I was listening to the night before John died. Just before I went to bed I listened to that particular track, which is quite ironic. Next we're going to choose a track from the Russian album Paul, I'm Going to Be Your Wheel Someday, which I think is delightful. It's my favourite track on the album, and I don't think it's a particularly well-known track. I can't recall who wrote it, but that was the first time I'd heard that track on that album, and I haven't heard it by anyone else since. So you guys out there probably know who did it originally, but I think it's a wonderful version from Paul. And so that was I'm Going to Be a Wheel Someday. Then now we've got an inclusion from 33 1/3, and this isn't really a rocker, but I've chosen the opening track because it's so full of energy. Woman, Don't You Cry for Me. And if you play this one loud, it's quite groovy. It's almost disco, but I would say it's more funky. And just a really, I think it would fit really well on a compilation album like this. And then number 4, we've got John's Instant Karma, which is a storming rocker, on piano-based rocker from 1970. Plastic Ono Band. Great. Have You Seen My Baby? I've chosen next from, again, the Ringo album. I won't show you the sleeve again, but that's the second track on side 1, a Randy Newman song. And Mark Boland is playing a brilliant guitar solo on it. And the musicians on that Ringo album are just top-notch all the way through. And I forget who's playing piano on that track, but it's, in fact, I could check for you now. It is James Booker. Great job on piano on that track. Number 6, we go back to Paul and the second track on side 1, Getting Closer, from, this is Wings' kind of so-called rockiest album, and this is the first track to make the list for me, Getting Closer. The lyrics leave something to be desired, but that's not overly important all the time. The actual music, the chord changes, the singing is pretty much top-notch, and that's actually a demo version of when Paul was sharing the lead vocal with Denny Laine. So Denny Laine was singing the verse, and then Paul was singing the middle bits, and then Paul obviously thought, this is not working particularly well, so took over the lead vocal. But that was quite an interesting thing, and if and when we do get the archive back to the egg, that presumably might be an outtake, which would be useful, interesting. So number 7, we're going to go to the Extra Texture album, and I thought, well, should I include this? Because this is really a pop song, but it's just so infectious and such a good song to play loud, and it is upbeat, and it's got a load of musicians playing on, from Jim Gordon to Klaus, I think it is. Let me just, sorry, it's Carl Raddle on bass, Leon Russell on piano, Gary Wright on electric piano, David Foster, Jim Horn and George Harrison, and it's the opening track, You. And George is maybe struggling to hit the notes, because he recorded this for Ronnie Spector years before, and it was a kind of failed experiment. But you know, he sings it with gusto, and it's a very successful track. That rounds off side 2. Side 3, we're going to start off with Ringo's superb version of the Elton John, well, it's the only version, the Elton John Bernie Taupin song Snookeroo. Taylor written for Ringo, and perfectly suiting his voice and his vocal range, and the lyrics could almost be autobiographical in terms of not being about Elton or Bernie, but about Ringo. You know, growing up in a working class district, 2 up, 2 down kind of thing, and just a thoroughly brilliant guitar solo from Robbie Robertson, and great piano from Elton, and it's just a wonderfully produced track by Richard Perry, and it's a deserved starter to side 3. Track 2 on side 3, we're going to go back to the Egg, and the strongest track on the album, in my opinion, Old Siam Sir, which was a single but only got to the mid-30s, I think, unfortunately. Deserved to do a lot better. But a crunching guitar riff at the beginning, and great vocal from Paul, and nonsensical lyrics, yes, but you know, they work pretty well on this one, and I think it's brilliant. Number 3, we're going to go to the Rock and Roll album and choose Slipping and Sliding, which is a track I have been playing a lot recently, because I have rediscovered the video of him at the Hit Factory doing the promo video for that, and I forget who's playing that sort of piano in the background of that video. Maybe it's Ken Asher, not sure, but it's a great video, and it's a great song, and you know, really well sung by John, as is the whole of the Rock and Roll album. Number 4, we're going to go back to All Things Must Pass and choose that rocker from side 4, The Art of Dying, with Eric Clapton supplying very nice guitar fills throughout, and a whole lot of drummers on this song as always, and sort of philosophical religious lyrics about reincarnation, and a good message. Number 5, we're going to go to Wings, November 1977, and the double A side, Mull of Kintyre, backed by Girls' School, which was a very strong rocker, and in the US, Mull of Kintyre got ignored and Girls' School was promoted, but only got to number 33, and Paul was apparently pissed off with this, thought they didn't promote it enough. But what might have helped Girls' School is if he'd done a promo video for it, which he didn't. So I think it was a bit of an own goal, that one. Because if you're going to release a single straight after your biggest tour ever, you should really do a promo video for it. Or maybe he just assumed Mull of Kintyre was going to be released on both sides of the Atlantic. But anyway, it's an underrated gem, Girls' School. Very nicely sung, good musicianship from the band. Number 6, we're going to go back to Plastic Ono Band and pick the first track on side 2, Remember, a piano-based rocker with Klaus on bass, Ringo on drums again. Really nice song about John's childhood and how he was, you know, rejected and stuff like that, and how he found it hard, but then kind of an uplifting message in the chorus, you know, don't be sorry for what you've done and don't you worry, kind of thing. So which is pretty uplifting in the end. Now number 7, we're going to go back to 33 and a third and choose It's What You Value. And again, this isn't really a rocker, it's more of a pop song, but one struggles to find rockers from George's catalogue, so one has to do what one has to do, and It's What You Value is thoroughly catchy. Play it loud on an album like this and it would work very well. It's about Jim Keltner, by the way, the lyrics, because for the 74 tour he wanted payment in the form of a car as opposed to cash, so George wrote this song about that. Now that rounds off side 3. Side 4, the final side, we're going to kick it off with the superb ballroom dancing first track side 2 of Tug of War, first track side 4 on here, and just pounding piano, and just great, well produced by George Martin. Everything about this track is very nice indeed. Number 2 on here, I don't have the album to show you for some reason, but it's from the Mind Games album, as you probably remember, a favourite of mine, Tight As, second track on side 1, and that's easily the best rocker on Mind Games. If probably the only rocker really, unless you count Only People, and it's really great guitar solos from Dave Spinoza. Just a wonderful track. And number 3, we're going to go to Cloud 9. Now, do I have Cloud 9 to show you? Probably not, sorry. So it is the 1987 album from George Harrison. I'm choosing Fish on the Sand, which I think is a very strong rocker, about as close to a rocker as you're going to get from George in latter day anyway, and very nice philosophical lyric. 4, we're going to go with a track from Ringo's album Bad Boy, or Ringo Bad Boy Star as it was promoted. It's the cover of Lipstick Traces, the old 50s hit, and I think it's delightful. Piano from Dr. John, although it's not credited on the sleeve. The musicians are kind of under code names, but I think I figured out it's Dr. John on piano and Dee Murray on bass, and very suited to Ringo's vocal range here. Delightful. Could have chosen any number of cover versions from Ringo's career, like Hey Baby and stuff, but this one, on this occasion, Lipstick Traces got the nod. Number 5, we're going to go back to Sometime in New York City, and the track John Sinclair, with very nice slide guitar from John. Quite rare that he would play lead guitar on a song in his solo career, and here he does it with aplomb. So that was John Sinclair, about the guy who was sent to prison for being in possession of 2 marijuana joints and sentenced to 10 years, but later released thanks to John's efforts largely. Waiting on You All from George. We're going back to All Things Must Pass here, and although it's not absolutely my favourite song from him in his career, I couldn't leave it off, because it's it's one of a handful of bona fide rockers of George's entire catalogue, so I couldn't leave it out. Wall of Sound from Phil Spector, at least 2 or 3 drummers there, as you can hear, and reverb. You know, some people love it, some people hate it, but it's a very captivating song. And then to finish off the whole album, we're going to choose Letting Go from Paul from Wings. And apologies to all you Venus and Mars fans out there. I'm going to choose the live version from Wings Over America, because I think it rocks harder, and I just think it's got more energy, and it's a really strong closer to side 4 of this album, in my opinion. So these were the 28 tracks. I hope you can read that. Take a screenshot if you want to check out some of these tracks if you haven't heard them. But anyway, it's only my opinion. Don't expect you to agree. No problem with that. And hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.